Imagine for a moment that the ground beneath your feet is not just rock and soil. Imagine that the air you are breathing right now is not just a random mix of gases. What if these distinct parts are actually organs functioning within a single massive body? And what if the extreme weather events we see today are not random disasters, but a coordinated physiological response? For decades, we have looked at climate change as something we are doing to the planet. But there is a terrifying scientific perspective that suggests the planet is doing something to us. It looks remarkably like a fever. When a biological organism is invaded by a pathogen, it raises its internal temperature to kill the intruder. If the Earth is indeed a single living system, as the Gaia Hypothesis suggests, then we might be staring at a grim reality. We are not the passengers on this ship. We are the infection, and the system is beginning to sanitize itself.
Most people get this theory completely wrong. They hear the name Gaia and picture a benevolent mother figure or some ancient Greek goddess protecting the forests. That is a dangerous fairy tale. The actual science, developed in the 1970s, has nothing to do with spirituality and everything to do with ruthless survival mechanics. Think of it less like a deity and more like the thermostat in your house. If your home gets too hot, the AC kicks in automatically. It doesn't care about you, it just reacts to the data. This is the core of the theory. Life acts as the engineer of its own environment. The oxygen you breathe is chemically unstable. In a dead world, it would react with rocks and vanish. The only reason it stays at a breathable 21% is because life is constantly pumping it out, maintaining a state of high-energy disequilibrium. But here is where the science gets darker. If life regulates the planet to keep it habitable, what happens when one species threatens that stability? Recent data from 2024 confirms that we have breached 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries. These are the safe operating limits for our world. The system is now under immense pressure to correct the imbalance, and the correction mechanisms are not gentle. They look like mega-droughts, collapsing currents, and a biosphere that is rapidly becoming hostile to human life.
To understand how we figured this out, we have to go back to the space race. The theory didn't start in a forest. It started at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They were trying to figure out if there was life on Mars. Most scientists wanted to send expensive probes to dig in the dirt, hoping to find Martian bacteria. But an independent British scientist named James Lovelock had a different idea. Lovelock was a brilliant, eccentric inventor. This is the man who literally reinvented the microwave oven just to reanimate frozen hamsters in a lab. He realized you don't need to land on a planet to check for life. You just need to look at its atmosphere. When he analyzed the light signature from Mars, he saw an atmosphere in perfect dead equilibrium. It was almost entirely carbon dioxide, doing absolutely nothing. Then he looked at Earth. Our atmosphere is a chaotic, volatile mix of gases that should have exploded or neutralized eons ago. Methane and oxygen shouldn't exist together like this. The only explanation was that a massive global biological system was actively maintaining this anomaly. Lovelock realized the atmosphere wasn't just a blanket, it was an extension of the biosphere itself. It was the breath of a living planet. He shared this idea with his neighbor, the novelist William Golding, who told him that a theory this big needed a name with power. He suggested Gaia. It was a branding masterstroke that would make the theory famous, but also make it hated by serious academics for decades.
The biggest criticism of Gaia was simple. Critics asked how a planet could regulate itself without a brain to make decisions. Did the bacteria hold a global meeting to vote on the temperature? Of course not. To prove the critics wrong, Lovelock created a computer simulation called Daisy World. Imagine a planet with a sun that gets hotter every year. On this planet, there are only 2 types of life: black daisies and white daisies. When the planet is cold, black daisies thrive because they absorb heat.
Their dark color warms up the entire planet. But as the sun gets hotter, the heat becomes too much for the black daisies. They die off, and white daisies take over. The white daisies reflect sunlight back into space, acting like a planetary shield that cools the surface down. Without any planning or intelligence, the daisies automatically keep the planet at the perfect temperature. This isn't magic, it's cybernetics. It's a feedback loop, just like the governor on a steam engine. However, recent science has added a twist to this story. For years, we believed in the claw hypothesis, the idea that plankton produce clouds to cool the Earth. But as of 2025, new data from NASA's PACE satellite suggests these biological cooling loops are weaker than we thought. The planet has these mechanisms, yes, but they are not invincible. And right now, we are overwhelming them.
This brings us to the most terrifying metaphor of all, the fever. We tend to think of global warming as a gradual tragedy, but in biological terms, heat is a weapon. Your body uses a fever to cook out a virus because viruses can't survive high temperatures as well as you can. Look at the data from the last few years. Ocean temperatures are spiking off the charts. Coral reefs, the rainforests of the sea, are dying en masse. From the perspective of the Gaia Hypothesis, this is the immune system kicking into overdrive. The planet is moving toward a new, hotter equilibrium, a state that might be stable for the Earth, but uninhabitable for modern civilization. And the recovery time is staggering. If we push the system past its tipping points, it doesn't just bounce back when we stop polluting. Geological records show that once carbon floods the system, it takes roughly 100,000 years for natural weathering to scrub it out and cool the planet down. That is the timescale of Gaia. She doesn't operate on human election cycles. She operates on deep time. If humanity becomes too toxic for the system will simply shed us and wait for the next epoch. It has happened before. It can happen again.
But there is an even darker possibility. What if the Earth isn't trying to save life at all? Paleontologist Peter Ward proposed a counter-theory called the Medea Hypothesis. Named after the Greek figure who killed her own children, this theory argues that life is actually suicidal. Ward points to the Great Oxidation Event 2 billion years ago. Back then, microbes accidentally pumped so much toxic oxygen into the atmosphere that they wiped out nearly all life on Earth and froze the planet solid for millions of years. Life didn't stabilize the planet. Life almost destroyed it. According to this view, we aren't just a virus. We are the latest in a long line of biological mistakes. We are a species that has evolved to extract resources so efficiently that we are sawing off the branch we sit on. It suggests that without intelligent management, the biosphere naturally drifts towards self-destruction. This means we can't just trust Mother Nature to fix it, because her fix might be a mass extinction event that includes us on the casualty list.
So, is it game over?
Not necessarily. Before he passed away, James Lovelock proposed one final mind-bending evolution of his theory. He called it the Novacene. He argued that the Anthropocene, the age of humans, is already ending. We are giving birth to a new era of hyperintelligence driven by AI and cyborg systems. Now, you might think machines don't care about the environment, but Lovelock argued the opposite. High-powered computing requires massive amounts of cooling. Servers cannot run on a planet that is boiling over. Therefore, these future synthetic intelligences will have a selfish survival imperative to keep the Earth cool and habitable. This aligns with what modern researchers call Gaia 2.0. It is the idea that the planet is finally growing a brain. For billions of years, the system ran on blind automatic pilot. But now, through us and our technology, the planet can actually see itself. We have satellites, sensors, and models. We know exactly what is happening. We have the unique ability to become the planet's nervous system, to consciously regulate the thermostat, instead of just blindly burning the furniture.
We stand at a singular moment in geological history. The old automatic systems are failing.
The passive nature will heal narrative is dead. We are no longer just inhabitants of this world. We have become a functional part of its operating system. The fever we are seeing is a clear signal. The biological machinery is straining under the load. If we continue to act like a pathogen, consuming without limit and poisoning the host will do what any living body does. It will neutralize the threat. But if we can integrate, if we can use our intelligence to become the stewards that this system desperately needs, we might just survive the transition. The Earth is not sentimental. It is a complex, evolving entity that has survived far worse things than us. The question isn't whether Gaia will survive. She will be fine in a few million years. The question is whether we want to be here to see it. So here is the question you need to ask yourself. Do you see humanity as the virus that needs to be cured, or are we the brain that the planet has been waiting for? Let me know your verdict in the comments below.